They are ready to grill you. They are the prosecutors today. You have to deal with multiple prosecutors.
Why not allow them to start the prosecution first? Easier.
Let's have your statement, then we'll cross-examine you.
Listen, a democracy without education is hypocrisy without limitation. Democracy means that the people of the country are sovereign. Now, sovereignty of the people is a myth unless the people are not informed about how our elected representatives or whoever the rulers are acting in the course of their discharge of their duties. You must have the intelligence to understand what is required of rulers. You must have recourse to evidence about what they are doing. And whenever there is any deficiency of information, they must have access to that information by legal means. Now, the most important institution in a democracy, therefore, is the press, the media. You are the beneficiaries of their activities, and they are also the beneficiaries of the love, affection and respect which they get from the people. But that respect necessarily depends upon the quality of the work which they do. Now take one example. What happened during the emergency in this country? And you are too young to know about the emergency, but some of you must have read about it. Mrs. Gandhi had lost her election in the High Court, and meant a disqualification. She had to resign, and instead of resigning and complying with the democratic norms, she tried to get stay orders from the Supreme Court, and fortunately for the country, she got into the hands of a very, very honest judge, Krishna Iyer, who died only recently. He didn't grant her a stay. She was expecting a stay. And then, after having not succeeded in her designs in the judiciary, she decided to destroy the Constitution of India. The Constitution was destroyed. She suspended all human rights, and I went down south in a place called Palghar to address a meeting of the Kerala Bar Association. And I have made no secret of the fact that I had tremendous contempt for Mrs. Gandhi and contempt for what she was doing. And I delivered a thumping address to the assembled members of the bar, which included, of course, judges, police officers, magistrates, and so many. And I must also tell you that those people who were sharing the stage with me, one by one, left while I was speaking because they knew what was coming. Anyway, the report was immediately made about my, what they call my seditionist activity. And warrants were issued from Kerala for my arrest. In the meantime, I had already returned to Bombay. Then from Bombay, I was in Madras, arguing a case in the Madras High Court. And my wife telephoned to me that the Commissioner of Police, Bombay, has just informed me that there is a warrant for my arrest and he wants to arrest you. So I said, you just tell him that I'll finish my arguments and I'm coming back tomorrow. When I came back on the next day from Madras, already in the heart of the Indian bar, fortunately, and particularly the Bombay bar has been one of the best bars in the world. And they showed so much courage that 300 lawyers appeared before a judge of the Bombay High Court and had obtained an injunction restraining them from arresting me. And I had then that injunction in my pocket, and for the next so many months I have fully utilized my injunction and went round the whole country and attacking the emergency as phony and criticizing it and so on and so forth. But the conduct of the press was, what shall I say, it was contemptible. They are supposed to be the guardians of democracy. They are supposed to be the purveyors of information to the people and to educate the people about their rights and at least to make a protest against the destruction of the whole human rights system under the Constitution of India. The press behaved very, very, very badly. And then, again, credit to the judiciary. 9 high courts in India had ruled that in spite of the emergency, the judiciary has the duty as well as the right to protect human liberty. Constitution may have been suspended, but there is a common law which survives. Under the common law, which is a part of Indian law, no person can be detained in custody unless he has been convicted by a court or there is a judicial order and so on and so forth. But the press did not have the courage even to say this much. There was only an underground press. Some circulars and letters were being secretly circulated in those days, particularly from Punjab. And, you've seen this, what's the name of this lady? Some Lekhi lady, no? Minakshi's father-in-law.
P.N. Lekhi.
Like, yes, there were 1 or 2 others. And of course, all these fellows, Advanis and others, they were all in jail. And I happened to be out. And then, of course, they went in appeal to the Supreme Court, the government. And the Attorney General of India argued the case on behalf of the government. And I remember that I appeared in the Supreme Court for one of the detainees. When I opened my appeal, and I told them that 5 judges were sitting, and I told them that you will not be impressed by the fact that I am appearing for one detainee, because there are thousands and thousands rotting in the Indian jails today for no fault of theirs, except that they are critics of what is happening in this country to our freedom. But I said, what might impress you is ultimately that I am appearing for all 5 of you. But I told the 5 judges who were sitting there. So the Chief Justice, Mr. Ray, he almost fell out of his chair when I said this. He said, Mr. Jethmalani, did you really say this? I said, yes. I said, yes, I not only said it, but I am going to repeat it. And for the next 5 minutes, I told him that, Mr. Chief Justice, I am addressing you and not your 4 brother judges. He heard me for those 4 minutes. I told him that, Mr. Chief Justice, have you heard of a country called Ghana? In that country, there was a Chief Justice who helped the government of that state just to draft the preventive detention law. The fellow had no other part to play except that he helped in drafting a law for preventive detention. And when that law came into force, the Chief Justice was the first to be picked up under that law. And for 2 years, nobody heard of what happened to the Chief Justice. The press was silent. But after 2 years, a cryptic announcement appeared in the press that the Chief Justice died of natural causes. I said, Mr. Chief Justice, that fate awaits you here, and I have come to rescue all 5 of you from this. Anyway, after that, at least they heard me with great patience. But ultimately, only one judge had the courage to decide truly, and the remaining 4, I am ashamed to say that 2 of them were my thick friends before they became judges. They let down Indian democracy. The Jabalpur judgment is supposed to be the most ignominious judgment in the history of Indian judiciary. And ultimately, you know what happened. When the judgment was delivered in the morning, at night, I called my lawyer friends in Bombay and told them that this is the judgment, that the judiciary has no right to protect human liberty at all. And everybody is silent. Those who would speak are in jail. And they said, but what do you suggest? I said, listen, what I suggest is that I need your permission to leave India. So they said, but how will you leave India? I said, that you leave it to me, because none of you is a criminal lawyer. I'll leave. Be sure that I'll leave. They said, all right, I said, listen, all that I have called you for is to let you know that I am not running away because I am a coward. But I want the voice of free India to be heard outside. And there is no other person who will do this job. So they said, all right, you can go. And that night, I left, but I had a social engagement. The social engagement was that the last Attorney General who died recently, he was getting married on that day. Ghulam Manat. So his nikah was going on. It's just sort of whispered in his ears that you won't see me for quite some time and I'm leaving. He didn't even understand what I was telling. But then I went to the airport and I got into the plane, and you will be surprised that I was escorted to the plane by no less a person than the Commissioner of Police Bombay. That's my role as a criminal lawyer. And believe you me, it is the press abroad which did their job. I was invited to give evidence before the Senate of the United States, and Mrs. Gandhi had come to know that I am giving evidence, because I had told the Indian ambassador that either revoke the emergency or I am on a war path. You can't do anything. I am the only Indian who ever has got political asylum in the United States. And of course I was teaching law there during the emergency. But I used to teach 1 day in a week. And the rest of the time I used to go around the whole country and talk about what was happening to Indian democracy. I was doing the work of the entire Indian press, whereas the foreign press was behind us. And Mrs. Gandhi on that day sent her representative to Washington to appear on the same day as I was appearing before the Senate Committee on Human Rights. He was some chap who was conducting some kind of a college in Punjab, run by the government. There are also SACO funds among teachers as well. So he also gave evidence, and he said everything is okay in India and nothing is wrong and so on and so forth. So the chairman of the committee asked me, he said, Mr. Jethmalani, do you want to ask him any question? I said, only one question. That when he goes back to India, will he assure us that the proceedings of today's meeting will be reported in the press? If he says yes, then believe his testimony, But if you can't give that assurance, don't. So they told him. He said, sir, I can't guarantee. That much honesty he had. And anyway, cut a long story short, but for the foreign press and foreign leaders, Indian democracy would have become dead forever. That's the role of the press, and if you are trying to follow that career, please first acquire the necessary moral courage. Second, you must keep your eyes and ears open. And third, do not become political partisans. Your duty is to the common man and to the people of the country, and you have to serve democracy. And how many live up to this great ideal of the press? I have great faith in the young. I am 92 years old, and my Prime Minister, Atalji, when I was a minister in his cabinet, used to ask me that, at the time I was 80, now I am 92. He used to ask me that, Ram, how is it that you do all kinds of things which I did only at 18? So I said, Atalji, I don't know what you did at 18. But one of these days, when you come home, have a drink with me and I'll tell you about it. I'll educate you about it. One day he came. So I told him, I said, Atalji, you are a great orator, a scholar, you attract crowds, that gives you eye. But you know nothing about world history. So he said, Ram, what is there? He's younger than me, incidentally. I said, Atalji, have you heard of King Solomon? He says, I've heard of King Solomon. I said, King Solomon has left a prescription for eternal youth. So he looked at me a little quizzically. So I told him, Atalji, you have a dirty mind. He hasn't left a medicine or an aphrodisiac. He says, but then what has he done? I said, he has left a lesson. What lesson has he left? I said, the lesson that he has left is that the older you get, the younger should be your company. So again he looked at me. I said, tell me, you are a dirty mind. I said, listen, I follow the teaching of Solomon almost religiously. He said, but how do you follow it? I said, I follow it by going to the colleges and teach. It is the young which keep me young. So I'm very happy to see all young people here in front of me. I assure you that tonight I'll be 5 years younger. Now you go ahead.
सर एक चीज और इनके शुरू होने से पहले कि मैंने इनको एक बार बताया था, आपने आर्ग्यू करते करते जजेस को कह दिया था कि my experience at the bar is a little more than your lordship's age.
Yeah, of course. But you know, at that time when Atalji's government was in power, there was a Congress government in Bombay, and they were trying to arrest Bal Thackeray for an offence which had taken place 7 years ago. Purely political vendetta and so. So Atalji told me, he said, Ram, he's our friend and he should be protected. I said, Atalji, don't worry about it. I will protect him not because he's your friend or my friend, but I'll protect him because he deserves to be protected. And it will be an abuse of power if this man is arrested. Don't worry about it. So I made a thumping statement about it, a political statement. It had nothing to do with the judiciary. At that time, the Chief Justice of India was Mr. Justice Anand. And he was a person against whom some very respectable politicians had made a complaint of corruption. It had gone to the president, and the president had sent it to me for disposal because I was the law minister at that. So he mentioned that Mr. Jethmalani, people are harassing the judiciary and things like that. And he gave me some version of what he thought was the truth about that complaint. So when that petition came to me for disposal, I rang him up and told him, I said, Anand, that day you mentioned this matter. Don't send me anything signed by you. Write out just a typed note and send it to me. I want to dispose of this file. Now I must tell you about another great man. Another great man is Mr. Ram Jethmalani, who is the finance minister today. Don't ask me about my opinion of that man. He was very keen on becoming a law minister. So he went to Atalji in the company of Soli Sorak. When I became the law minister, the first thing that I found was that a lawyer of 1 year's standing, who had practiced for 1 year in some Mufassil town in Gujarat, had become the counsel for the state in the Supreme Court. So I called my law secretary. I said, tell me who is responsible for this appointment. So he said, sir, you know that before you, this Ambi Durai was Jayalalitha's man, was the law minister, and who had a scale of fees for work done for people like a grocery shop, And he did no work at all. But I said, but who was running the ministry? He said, the ministry was being run by the Attorney General, Mr. Soli Sorak. I said, you cancel this appointment immediately. And I called up Mr. Soraji and told him, I said, Soraji, I will not tolerate this kind of nonsense going on in this country. You may be the Attorney General or whatever you think you are. Don't make these stupid appointments. Anyway, so...
Now he's open to question.
Curiously, the two of them joined and went to Atalji and told him that now we have lost the Supreme Court, now we have to face the music, and the whole Supreme Court is our enemy. So Atalji asked one of his ministers, Mr. Jaswant Singh, who is still in a coma for the last 6 months, to call me up when I was in a car between Pune and Bombay. He's the last Englishman left in this country, the Prime Minister wants you to put in your papers. So I immediately imitated him. I said, Jaswant, tell the Prime Minister that the nearest fax machine that I get, I'll send you my resignation. I did send him my resignation from the nearest fax machine that I got. And will you believe that I have not seen Atalji's face ever since then? From that day. That's it. Now you go ahead.
So, who is asking the question?
No, but you don't have to get up, son.
Sir, I first congratulate you as you are known as very lawyer with many distinctions to your credit, and it goes without saying you have that kind of outstanding era since our independence so far. My first question is to you should we interpret our criminal justice system in this manner as this high-profile ongoing case of Sunanda Pushkar murder mystery has taken this twist, it is going to approach almost 1 year. And even in 2014, what the people of India have seen that was being interpreted that it is natural death because it was something related about overdose of drugs. And over the years, now it has termed as a unnatural death. So how can a common man expect from the criminal justice system if this kind of high-profile case takes in such ways?
Now, sir, first of all, what do you make of that story? And then compare it with what the press is doing. What is your feeling about it?
I think there is something political motivation and there is something high-profile background.
But now political motivation means what has changed is that Modi has become the Prime Minister. Do you think that Modi wants to implicate him falsely?
I won't take your view because as you are a paramount observer of this.
Therefore, I will tell you what it is. Today, the press is free from the thraldom of the Congress. To that extent, the freedom of the press explains, first of all, the freedom of the medical authorities. Their funny explanation is that we don't use the word homicide in our reports. But we have said that it was a case of murder. And now the press is beginning to speak up because of the newly acquired freedom under the new regime. So anyway, better late than never, so give them credit for it. But this is what is happening in this country. Frankly, I would not even blame the press because if the authorities were not very clear in their own mind, and nobody really talked of there being evidence of this kind of an unnatural death. And by the way, whether it is murder or whether it is suicide, both are unnatural. So don't think that one is natural and the other is not.
Next question.
And my second question.
Next question.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
As you have been a very renowned lawyer and you have also been the part of Bharatiya Janata Party. How do you differentiate? You have seen a lots of ups and downs in the politics. So how do you what major difference do you find in between the party which has ruled the country so long time and a party which has recently taken over?
Now, this shows how uninformed the press today is. And I assume that you are a young member of the press. You don't know that I am an expelled member of the BJP.
I know.
So why do you say that I belong to the BJP?
I heard you have been a part of it and...
Well, I have been a part of it many years ago. Many years ago, I took up the defense of the murderers of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. And also the murderers of Mrs. Gandhi herself. And I was told to resign from the office of being a vice president of the party. When the new BJP was formed, I became the first vice president of the party. And when they told me, because I took up the defense of somebody, they asked me to resign. I said I am resigning from the party rather than from this office of yours. I have not been a member of the BJP since then. In 2010, for the first time, when they needed me and my services, particularly by Mr. Modi himself, that they invited me to join again, and I joined, and after they have used me, and I have been expelled.
Not a question.
Sir, another question is, it is many times it is very confusing to understand what is the actual meaning of word Hindutva and secular propaganda. What's your view over that?
Now listen. First of all, Hinduism is not like any other religions. Every other religion, whether it is the Jewish faith or it is Christianity or it is Islam, there is a founder, the founding father of that religion. They have a scripture and they have settled rituals, minor differences apart. You at least know the approximate time when a particular religion came into existence. Hinduism is not a religion in that sense at all. We have no founders. We have no one system of beliefs. You can believe in one God, you can believe in 1,000 gods. You are a Hindu. You can believe in no God. You are still a Hindu. We do not excommunicate anybody merely for holding different views. We have no law of blasphemy. You can say that Krishna was a womanizer. We don't go about murdering him. Unlike what happens in Pakistan. You know what happened to Malala, and you know what happened to a poor Christian girl in one of the Punjab villages. So therefore, Hinduism is not a religion at all in the sense in which other religions are religions. Hindutva is not a synonym of Hinduism anyhow. So you must read the judgment of the Supreme Court, in which I appeared for some of these BJP and Shiv Sena people, whose elections were set aside by the Bombay High Court on the ground that they had asked for votes on the ground of religion, which is supposed to be a malpractice under the Representation of the People's Act. Their elections were set aside. I appeared and I have argued that matter in the Supreme Court for nearly 3 months, of course free. And I got the judgment of the Bombay High Court set aside. You must read that judgment and it will add to your knowledge. First of all, Hindutva and Hinduism are two different things. Then Hinduism is originally, historically, a geographical term. It is not a religious term at all. Hindus are those who are born in the territory which was known to outsiders as the territory which exists on both sides of the Indus and other river basins and so on. It was a geographical term. India, and they had difficulty in pronouncing I, so the Persians made it Hindutva and Hinduism. Hindutva has been defined by the Supreme Court as a culture which is intended to grow into a separate Indian culture, irrespective of religion and religious differences. That, after all, you see the great Muslim poet Iqbal said, "Hasti mitti nahi hamari, kuch to hai." He was talking of both Hindus and Muslims. So we had some common qualities, according to Iqbal, which have slowly disappeared, of course, now. But Hindutva is merely a cultural movement. And Hinduism is certainly not a religion as normally understood. It has now become a religion in some sense, but with vast differences. We don't have one common scripture, we don't have a common prophet, we don't have common doctrines. And you know, and the unfortunate classification of Hindu society into the upper caste and the lower caste. And these are disgraceful things. The true representative of Hinduism is, if you ask me, Swami Vivekananda. Read his life, read his speech which he delivered in Chicago at the Parliament of Religions, and where the whole world acknowledged that he was the best speaker and the best exponent of anything religious.
इनफैक्ट जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने केस डिसाइड किया था हिंदुत्व पे, तो सर ने ही आर्ग्यू किया था सारे का. सुप्रीम कोर्ट said हिंदुत्व is a way of life, it's not a religion. I don't know whether you guys know this or not.
Yes,
But you must read the judgment carefully again.
Yeah, Kujo.
Hello sir, my name is Surabhi. First of all, I'm very grateful to you for having us here and spending your precious time with us.
I told you that I'm grateful to the young for their
So my question to you is that you said, and I quote, that 3 factors are important for us to cultivate ourselves into good journalists. 1, moral courage. 2nd, eyes and ears should be open. And 3rd, we should avoid being political partisan. So sir, since we are infants in this field, obviously when we'll be joining an organization, we'll be at the lowest of the hierarchy. So if the organization we are working for is biased, let's say it's leftist, so how do we in such scenario prevent ourselves from being biased journalists? How do we deny, how do we build up that moral courage to deny that no, will not be?
First of all, as far as possible, select an employer who you think will respect your freedom. But it is not possible in this world sometimes. You will have to make compromises. Maybe that you will make some compromise, but ultimately see to it that you don't suppress your conscience too much. For a little while, yes, maybe, but grow out of it under any circumstances, and keep before you a picture that by this date I shall be more free than my employer. Then you will succeed.
अच्छा सर, जब मैं इनको पढ़ाने जाता था तो सब पूछते थे कि आप ऐसे केसेस क्यों ले लेते हो, जैसे आसाराम बापू टाइप के. हालांकि अभी कोई पूछ नहीं रहा, बट ये सबके मन में सवाल है कि आप ऐसा केस क्यों ले लेते हो. अनपॉपुलर केसेस होते हैं और इनके मुताबिक इनको पता होता है कि मर्डर उसी ने किया या ये क्राइम उसी ने किया, आप कैसे ले लेते हो?
देखो, there are too many explanations of this. First of all,
money, of course.
First of all, of course not. Of course not. But tell me, what is the method by which the press can know whether a person is guilty or not? You also have on some kind of ex-parte information. But you should know what has happened in the history of judicial administration. I want to tell you about a very fantastic case which happened in England. The name of the accused was Adolf Bake. He was charged with an offense of cheating 12 women, one after the other. His modus operandi was that he was a very handsome young man, attractive man. He used to seduce that woman, take her to bed, live with her, and then decamp with all her belongings. Movable, of course. At the trial, these 12 women gave evidence. They identified this man as the man who had been in their company, and such intimate company that they were sort of, the kind of life they led. He was sentenced. Nobody believed that he was innocent, except his solicitor. That solicitor kept watch. After he went to jail, a similar offense started happening. And another person was arrested for the commission of those offenses. And that person ultimately confessed to the police that he had not only committed the offences for which he was being charged, but he said that I am the one who has committed those offences for which you have put Adolf Baek in jail. The British government, the honest government as they are, they pardoned him, released him, and compensated him. And in every textbook on the law of evidence, you will find Adolf Baek case reported and described to show how the human mind works. You create some kind of a false image and then begin to imagine that this is the person who... And supposing a person comes to me and says, sir, I have been accused by the police, and charge sheet has been filed, I am supposed to be guilty of a particular crime. In my office, do I have the means of deciding whether he is guilty or not?
No, absolutely not.
What do I do? Talk to some press guy and ask him, what is your opinion?
No.
The Bar Council of India, under the Advocates Act, has passed professional rules of conduct and etiquette. These have statutory force, which if I commit a breach of those rules, I am liable to be thrown out of the bar. One of the rules is, which I am reading, giving you the entire text of that rule, that no lawyer shall refuse to defend a person on the ground that he believes him to be guilty. Second, that the public believes him to be guilty, or that it will bring him unpopularity. The express rule of the Bar Council of India. I have been the chairman of the Bar Council of India, and if I don't follow the rules, who will?
अच्छा, एक इसी का एक कंटिन्यूएशन में क्वेश्चन है, जो केस कोई नहीं लेता वो आप क्यों ले लेते हो? ये भी पूछना चाहते हैं. एक तो आप ले लेते हो, जो कोई सब रिफ्यूज कर देते हैं वो आप ले लेते हो.
Because I am only Ram Jethmalani.
That's true. So, earlier you had differences with BJP, and again in 2010, despite having differences with Mr. L.K. Advani, you joined BJP. Then what made you, what was the instance?
Now listen. 2010, I joined the BJP. They invited me to. I knew why I was invited. Then my clash came over the appointment of a director of the CBI. There were two persons. One was the person who is seeing me tonight at 8 o'clock, against whom I had fought cases, and I had so much information in my possession that I considered him totally unfit for appointment. He was being supported by Sushma as well as Arun Jethmalani. The other person had the support of the Congress party. Now, normally, I would rather support a person who's favored by the BJP rather than the Congress party, because Congress party also I have no respect for their integrity. But in this particular case, I had tons of evidence against this person who was selected by Arun Jethmalani and Sushma Swaraj and L.K. Advani. Against that man, I had nothing in my possession. So I preferred that man even though he was a Congress appointee. I regret to say that even that man against whom I supported turned out to be pretty bad. But not so bad as that man even now. Against that man, of course, he is retired now. There are 2 FIRs lodged at the instance of the Supreme Court and the High Court. Today he's coming to apologize and settle those matters. Now, one reason why I have been expelled from the party, but that happened very recently. The main reason was that all these persons were aspirants for the Prime Minister's job, and they didn't want me to support Modi. All of them. They were all aspirants.
Sir, in 2010, it was altogether hue and cry that over and over again, this LK Advani would be the Modi fever turned out mainly in 2012 and 13 around.
13 basically.
Basically 13. So it was, the contender was altogether, and even at that point, it was mainly...
Listen, now don't go into these details, but I may tell you that I have too much against each one of them. There was a election, it was a part of the election campaign really. There's an organization called Manthan. They had invited me as a speaker. And the persons present were about 7,000 students and the faculties of the various teaching institutions. And in the front seat was sitting Modi, Arun Jethmalani, and Chandrababu Naidu, three of them. So I spoke for about 25-30 minutes in the street, and I came to one conclusion, that all of them put on one side, me alone am superior to them. Then I paused for a few seconds, except Mr. Modi. I recognize his superiority. And that was the beginning of the end. Actually, I was removed from the party by these rascals who all are members of the 160 Club. Now you are young people in the press, you should know all these things.
Sir, many times it has seen that legislature and executive they tout in terms of judicial activism and judiciary encroachment towards legislature and executive as far as the basic structure of our constitution is concerned, and it has turned by Supreme Court of India as you witnessed that. So what is your opinion over that?
Listen, just as in physics, nature abhors a vacuum. When there is a vacuum in the other branches of our polity, somebody must take over to fill the vacuum. Today, have you heard the latest joke about politicians? No. That if one politician were to fall into a river and drown, it would be a simple case of pollution. But if all the politicians fall into the river and drown, that is the solution. So you see, this is the condition of politics today. Somebody has to fill that vacuum. The vacuum is filled by the judiciary. It's bound to be. I'm glad that it is so. Only that some judges are not qualified. But now that's another field in which the press can take a good part in reforming the judiciary also. I am not suggesting that they are gods. They are also mortals.
Sir, at the age of 17, you got your degree. So what special circumstances were there by which you got your degree? Because the eligibility of the degree in...
It's a long story. I don't mind, but I don't know whether you have the time.
So we have the time.
Sir,
I passed my matriculation at the age of 12. I had quadruple promotion from the 3rd to the 6th in my school. But I appeared for those examinations, but they held those examinations on various dates to suit my convenience. In other words, I was a good student. It had nothing to do with any influence. Then I belonged to a family of lawyers. My grandfather was a very successful lawyer in his area. But my father was also a lawyer, but he never made a great success. Why? Because he committed the mistake of growing under the shadow of his, of his very brilliant father. So he couldn't make himself fail. And he was determined to see that I don't become a lawyer. I was his only son. He compelled me to go into the science college. I reluctantly joined the science college, passed my first year science, then I went into inter science, and fortunately by that time I had shifted myself from my hometown to Karachi, which is the capital of Tejas College, the famous college. I was a student in inter science there. I hated the physics laboratory. I still remember those damn instruments called Young's modulus and some torsion magnetometer. I had never seen them. When I appeared for the examination, I told the examiner, I said, sir, I am determined to give up this science business. I don't see that I passed. I literally used to curse my father. That why have you put me in this science college? There is a place in Karachi called the Lovers Bridge. There frustrated lovers used to go and commit suicide. And I used to go to that bridge and sit there and contemplate suicide, not because some girl had let me down, but because my father had let me down.
You are yet to find a girl who let you down.
So, what happened was, a miracle happened. At the Bombay University, since there had no university of its own, we were all part of Bombay University. Bombay University started a new law course, 2 years course, whether you are inter-arts, inter-commerce, inter-arts, inter-science, whatever. So when this new scheme was announced, I said to my God, now I must pass my inter-science and then I'll defy my father. And I really managed to pass my inter-science, joined the law college against the wishes of my father, and in 2 years, in the Bombay University, a student from Sindh got first class first, and that is myself. And that was 17. Now, when I applied for enrollment, they told me that you can't be enrolled because the rule requires that you should be enrolled you should be 21. I said, my God, this is too much. So I argued my own case, the first case, without being a lawyer. I argued before Sir Godfrey Davis, who was the Chief Justice of Sindh, and I made a very convincing point, because this rule was framed by the Sindh Bar Council while I was a law student. So I argued before Sir Godfrey Davis that you are literally giving the retrospective operation to your laws. My parents, because this was a lie, that my parents would not have put me in the law college if they had known that I won't be able to support them for 4 years. So Sir Godfrey says, young man, you have made a great point, but don't worry about it. I'm not giving you a judgment, but I'll help. Please, come back to me after some time. So he called the Bar Council guys, and he told them that why don't you make an amendment in your rules that in suitable cases you will make exceptions without referring to my case. So they amended the rule that in suitable cases the Bar Council has the right to. So he says, young man, now you apply under that exception. So I applied under that exception. And they had no other option. I had a first class first in my LLB. But still the rascals found something against me. They said, but you are a minor. So they passed a resolution that he will be enrolled the day he becomes 18. So I became a lawyer at the age of 18. But between 17 and 18, I was a law teacher. Therefore, I have completed about 72 years of law practice, but I have completed 73 years of law teaching.
Sir, as you are very active and punctual person, so what is in the age of 92, what is the secret of your fitness?
Didn't I tell you? You want me to repeat it? I told you the company of the young.
You get up early, you also play badminton, and in this age, it's unbelievable.
I am controlled in my diet. I don't mind telling you that I love my drink in the evening, but I never take more than 2 drinks.
Really?
I eat very Oh yes. By 8:30, my servant cook has the instructions that whoever is sitting, even if 15 lawyers are sitting, you will serve me a drink at 8:30 sharp. But I never exceed the limit of 2 drinks. And alcohol is not only a source of energy, but it is also a most potent truth serum. After 3 drinks, you cannot lie. That is why I have been telling all these bastard police officers, that why do you use 3rd degree? You give them half a bottle of vodka and see how it sinks in the morning.